Hey, it's Chris from the Game Boys, and we all know that fast food and video games go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like Mario and Luigi, like Will and Jadis. Okay, actually that's probably not the best example, but you get the point. When you're up all night trying to beat Elden Ring or shouting at 12-year-olds in Call of Duty lobbies, cooking food is going to be the last thing on your mind. And since you've already spent all your money on video games, getting good takeout is out of the question. So you basically have two options: pizza or fast food. Companies were taking note of this and never missing the opportunity to grab the youth of the world and shove them full of cholesterol. Fast food corporations started marketing themselves in the world of video games. McDonald's made McKids, Domino's made Yo-Noid, Pizza Hut connected themselves with Ninja Turtles and NES, even Pepsi got in on the action, making a game called The hunt to grab the youth of the world was on, and nobody was pulling any punches. Except, oddly, for Burger King. But it turns out they were just biding their time, waiting, watching, deciding on the perfect opportunity to strike.
We attack tomorrow. I mean it this time.
I do too.
In 2003, Burger King hired an advertising firm called CB&P to handle their marketing. Wanting to get a younger crowd interested in the Burger King brand, they started reaching out to video game companies for advertising space, eventually getting the chain featured in Need for Speed Underground 2, objectively the greatest racing game of all time, with the greatest theme song of all time as well.
Coming in first, never in last. Cause my car too fast.
Snoop Dogg, my man, that is f***ing poetry. In terms of commercials, Burger King knew that if they wanted to stand out from the dozens of other fast food brands, they would have to do something extremely unique. After a brainstorming session at their offices, an employee of CB&P saw an oversized mask of the original Burger King mascot from the 1970s on eBay and thought, "My God, I've got it." One quick costume change later, and Burger King had their new mascot. Yep, this creepy motherfucker was the new leading man for Burger King, and honestly, it was kinda brilliant. One look at this guy and you would never forget him, no matter how much you wanted to. He's just so bizarre and uncanny that you could kind of see him being in Twin Peaks. The thing was, he would never do anything wrong. In every ad he was in, all he would do was walk up to people and give them free Burger King. Well, I guess depending on who you ask, that would be a war crime, but that's not the point. They took this weird idea and ran with it. Even if you didn't like the commercials, you gotta respect something like that. The ad campaign was a big success, as it gave great word of mouth for the company. However, it wasn't enough just yet. Still wanting to get a bigger share of the young male demographic, they once again turned their attention to video games. But instead of putting their brand in a recognizable IP, Burger King said, "Hey, that, why don't we just make our own games?" After reaching out to some development studios and eventually making a deal with Microsoft, in 2006, Burger King would take their new mascot and put him in what would be 3 of the greatest video games of all time. And by greatest, I mean they were pretty mid. Sneak King, Pocket Bike Racer, and Big Bumpin' were all available to purchase for $4 each at any Burger King. Since Sneak King was the most heavily promoted, we'll start there. When booting it up, you'll see a logo for Blitz Games, and if that logo looks familiar, it's because they're the people who made Fusion Frenzy! Fun fact, Fusion Frenzy was apparently Bill Gates' favorite game, and the world's richest man can't be wrong.
I would think that...
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill.
At the main menu, after you see Mr. King definitely not being a creeper, you boot into the game, and you know what? For what's essentially a late original Xbox game, since it was compatible on both Xbox and Xbox 360, the graphics don't look bad at all. They're not great, but they're certainly punching above their weight for a $4 game. As for the gameplay, Sneak King is kind of like Assassin's Creed, but instead of murdering people with knives, you're murdering them with high cholesterol. The idea is to sneak up on people and surprise them with whoppery goodness so that they don't pass out from hunger, which surprisingly a lot of these guys at this construction site seem to do. They're either the dumbest or the world's most dedicated employees. Also, for some reason, they all talk like Sims. The controls are surprisingly pretty good, except the horizontal camera controls are reversed, and you can't change it, meaning it will drive you f***ing crazy, but other than that, they're fine. The other frustrating thing besides the camera is the AI. Some missions give random spawn points to the people you need to sneak up to, which in theory sounds good, but in practice, all it does is make some of the missions impossible because if you get bad spawns, there's no way you'll be able to deliver to everybody in time. So you just gotta reset the mission again and hope you get lucky. However, the main problem with the game is that it's very repetitive. The missions always just consist of sneaking food to people under a certain amount of time, or dancing in front of them with what the kids would call sick-ass moves. Occasionally, you have to deliver food while hidden in something, but for some reason, the king takes forever to get into objects, and by the time he does, the person you're trying to give food to is long gone. And with just 4 maps in total, you can only deliver an Angus burger so many times before you eventually begin to question your own existence. It may be simple, but there's a bizarre charm to this experience since it's self-aware, has a good sense of humor, and knows not to take itself too seriously. Also, one last thing I need to bring up. If you thought the king was creepy before, just wait till you see this. Somebody call the cops. That's right, canonically the king is just a dude in a mask who breathes as heavily as a Discord moderator. Why do they feel the need to put this in there? I don't know, but honestly, it kind of makes me appreciate it a little more, just for the sake of seeing how far a fast food conglomerate was willing to go with the bizarreness of its main mascot. Next up, Pocket Bike Racer. An arcade-style kart racing game where instead of driving on go-karts, you're driving on bikes that look like they're designed for Gimli. The title menu shows the king driving in front of what is definitely not a green screen, and the sense of humor comes across again just from the characters you can select. You got Subservient Chicken, Whopper Jr., and the guy that always gets your order wrong at the drive-thru. These are established characters in the Burger King universe, by the way. They didn't just make these up. Also, for some reason, Brooke Burke is playable. If you don't know who she is, she did some TV work, but more notably, she was one of the main characters in Need for Speed Underground 2, the game that prominently featured Burger King.
Hi, I'm Brooke Burke, and I play Rachel Teller in Need for Speed Underground 2.
I don't know if she had a blood oath with the king or something, but hey, she's here. But if you don't like any of these characters, you can create your own. It's extremely basic, but it's impressive that a character creator is in here at all. I was able to make the Stig.
Some say that his favorite flower is the potato.
Getting into the gameplay, it plays like Mario Kart and actually isn't too bad. You get power-ups such as bottle rockets and dynamite, and you get these by going through traffic cones. However, sometimes the traffic cones are out of your way, and you have to decide whether it's worth it to go after the power-up or stay on the course of the track. It's pretty clever. The controls are pretty smooth too. At no point did I feel like I lost a race due to the game being unfair or cheap. The only thing that frustrated me was getting hit by an item at the last second and losing a race. But Mario Kart has trained me to get used to that. There are also 3 other modes. Battle Royale gives each player health, and the objective is to drive around killing each other with power-ups. However, since they recycle the maps that were made for racing, all you're doing is driving around in circles like chickens with your heads cut off. Subservient Chicken, I apologize, I didn't mean to offend you. Also, the hit detection with the items is awful. Oh, come on, that was right on target. What the f***? Okay, this is some bullshit. There's Cone Trial, with the objective being to cross over as many cones as possible. This is literally the easiest mode since all you have to do is drive backwards to win. And finally, there's Hardcore Racing, which is just the standard mode but without power-ups. I don't know about you, but every time I play Mario Kart, I say to myself, man, this game would be so much better without power-ups.
You're a liar!
Really, the only mode you're gonna want to play is the standard mode. The problem is, with just 5 tracks to choose from, it's gonna get old quickly. And while you can go online, good luck finding anybody still playing it. At the end of the day though, for a $4 game, it's not a bad way to kill an afternoon. Finally, we have Big Bumpin'. This seems to be the game most people have forgotten about, and it turns out there's a good reason for that. The main objective is to get into a bumper car and take everybody else out in the arena by ramming into them. This is a good idea in theory, but in practice, it's a nightmare. For one, the controls suck. If you've ever wanted to have the speed of a racing game, but also wanted to control like the original Resident Evil, then Big Bumpin' is for you. Secondly, the player feedback is awful. There were plenty of times when I thought I was doing well, getting the right power-ups and smashing into other cars properly, but then I just spontaneously combust for no reason. The mode where you have to knock other players off the stage is pretty fun, but that only lasts for like 15 seconds. This whole experience feels like one of the worst minigames from Fusion Frenzy, just with a BK logo slapped on it. But hey, you can at least still customize your character. This time I made comic book guy.
Worst episode ever.
Despite the fact that all 3 of these games are kinda mediocre, when they released, they ranked in the top 10 games sold in 2006, and were directly responsible for a 40% increase in sales at Burger King for the quarter, making this one of, if not the most successful video game fast food campaign in history. While they are just a novelty, there is a unique charm to them that's hard to find anywhere else. I'd actually recommend trying them. You can buy all 3 on eBay, still shrink wrapped for like $3 each. If anything, you should get them just to remind yourself of a simpler time, when Burger King's advertising strategy wasn't just shove a jingle in your face until you beg them to stop.
Whopper, Whopper.
Oh my god, shut up! Shut up! Just shut up! Oh my god, shut up! Shut up! Well, at least it gave birth to the memes. The glorious, glorious memes.
Whopper, 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 Junior, Double, Triple Whopper.
And that's gonna do it for this episode. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go have dinner, and for some reason, I'm really craving a Whopper. I'm Chris from the Game Boys, and I'll see you next time. I immediately regret this.